Welcome back to Animal Crossing New Horizons. I'm Dear Darling, and shall we see what's going on a lovely island of Fawnhollow today, where we'll be relaxing as per usual. It's a Friday, gotta get down on Friday, in the infamous words of Rebecca Black. What are we going to talk about today? That is a good question. I don't know why this is literally the first thing that came to mind, but something that came to mind was a childhood anecdote about me eating paper, which I suppose we'll get onto in a second. Actually, there's actually multiple anecdotes now I think about it, but starting off with, I suppose, things which are more relevant is we'll go on to relevant things, I suppose, after Isabel's conversation. But good evening, everyone. Right now in Fawnhallow, it's 8:27 p.m. on Friday, July 21st, 2023. So, what I was going to say was, more recent things. Yesterday was my writing group with my friends. How did it go? It was pretty good, as it always is. It's always nice to see what my friends have written, in my opinion, and all drawn, and seen, what they've created, basically. It's like, I feel like art is sort of like a doorway into other people's minds, in a different way, that interaction that directly is, isn't it? Anyway, turns out a lot of people actually quite liked the story I wrote, which was, I found quite amusing, because I was talking about it yesterday, where I was just like, I'm not entirely sold on my story, I'm sort of like iffy on it, it's not exactly my favourite, and then some people were just like, oh yeah, I actually really like it, and then, or was like, it's my favourite one that you've written, and I was like, whoa, okay, fair enough. And if anything, it just sort of goes to show different strokes for different folks, as they say. And if you don't know what that means, it basically just means that people have different opinions, essentially. Or different things tickle other people's fancy. I probably shouldn't use another idiom to explain another idiom. Different things appeal to different people. But yeah, that's about basically long and short of it. Anyway, on to anecdotes, as I was going to say, about eating paper, which is, for some reason, the first thing that came to mind. But basically, it's the weirdest thing that I randomly have a memory of. But I had a teacher back in year 2 where I don't know what to think of her, because at the time I think we all loved her, she was great and everything, but looking back I'm just like, sometimes she was very nice and sweet, and sometimes she would just go like, she was horribly, I wouldn't say she was like mean or anything, but sometimes she would like be a lot harsher than you might expect, I suppose, a year 2 teacher to be. You might be like, what year is year 2? I was 5 or 6 or something in year 2. I think that's right, the right age range. I'm not really sure, but somewhere around there. And I at least I think it was his teacher who did it, but basically there was some other kid in our class where I don't know why he necessarily did, but he ate some paper. You might just, if you are, I suppose, more rather aware of kids, you'd probably be like, oh yeah, kids just kind of like do that sometimes. They're kind of doing their damnedest to do the dumbest thing possible, because their kids are testing boundaries, are seeing what they can and can't do to a certain degree. They don't necessarily have the inhibitions or the experience to be like, hey, that's a bad idea, and I know why that's a bad idea. And I've got the restraint to not choose the bad idea decision. But he ate some paper. Actually, he wasn't even eating it, and I remember he was chewing on it like gum. Unsurprisingly, gum was a thing which was banned in our school. So, a lot of the things which could potentially cause like litter or like a mess were banned. Actually, we had a lot of things were banned. Games as well were quite banned. But he was just like chewing on this like paper wad, just like it was gum. You might be like, why? I don't know, maybe he needed like gum as a sort of like substitute or something, or maybe the likely answer is almost certainly he was just bored and he was just doing something to like entertain himself, and he was like, it might be fun to chew on gum or something, or maybe it was like a cool fad thing at the time, I don't remember. But I remember the teacher at the time caught him chewing gum and was just like, spit that out or whatever, or I can't remember exactly how it led up to it, but I remember she went on this sort of like tirade about basically being like, you can't eat paper, it's like one of the worst things you do. You know what happens when you eat paper? You can't digest paper. It's not made out of food or something. It's not made out of food. It's not something your body knows how to handle, but it will still go down through your digestion tracts. I mean, it will become soaked in like all the stomach acid and the fluids inside of you, but it doesn't digest, it doesn't break down. It sticks as like this giant paper wad in your digestive system, and then it will eventually get stuck in your like intestine or small intestine, and it will cause a blockage. And then what you're going to do, you're just going to sit there and you can't digest food because nothing can get past this blockage. So the only way it can go is up again. So apologies for the squeamish, I suppose, among you. So the only thing you can do is throw up, but you won't get any nutrients from it because you won't be able to ingest any food or digest it or anything like that. So I remember she just went on this really long tirade about this entire thing, about how if he was eating paper, the only thing he could do was lie there on his couch and just continuously throw up anything he ever eats, and he'll never be able to eat food again. It was surprisingly graphic, and but I would certainly say like many like probably a step too far, I would say, for explaining or teaching a moral lesson to a child, I would say. But it was just like so random, because I have that vivid memory just like etched into my mind, which maybe you might argue, the teacher's done a good job, it's instilled that teaching into me. I will say, I don't think I was particularly someone who ate a lot of paper, so it wasn't really a teaching I think I needed. Mainly because, I'm going to be honest, paper doesn't taste very good. If you've ever licked an envelope to, like stick it down to seal an envelope shut, it doesn't taste very good. Except for this one envelope. I can't remember where I bought it from. I don't know. But, like, they made adhesive or whatever. Like, with saliva activated adhesive. And it tastes really sweet for some reason. And it was actually surprisingly tasty. But that's a story for a pastime. And also, it was not particularly common. So I don't think it's a particularly good frame of reference. But I just remember that, like, she's just going on this very vivid description of this poor kid, just, like, lying on the sofa, because he, like, chewed some paper once and swallowed it. But it was now stuck in his small intestine, and he would just starve to death because he could never digest food, but he would just throw up everything. Obviously, looking back in retrospect, if that happens, I'd imagine your body can break down paper. I know it sounds silly to say, because I'm not suggesting you eat paper. There's no nutrients in it for you. It's like a waste of your body's time, to be in the most literal level. But paper, like, breaks down pretty easily in just water. We have a lot of things stronger than water, I suppose, than our stomach acid. I would be shocked, I suppose, if paper did not fully break down in your... Well, maybe not even fully break down, but it should break down enough to not cause a blockage, probably, in your intestines. I don't know if that's actually true or not. Please, I cannot reiterate enough, don't eat paper. I really hope it was not on your mind or anything like that. But it just makes you think, about the documentaries about people who eat like glass and like rocks and things like that. And it's like, or like airplanes. It's like, come on, they can digest that? You're telling me the average person can't digest like a piece of paper? I'd be surprised, if anything. But you know what? That's a Google question. Can humans digest paper? Probably very starchy, I'd imagine. Humans lack the enzymes necessary to properly digest it. Will come through his GI tract much in the same form it came in. You know what? Color me surprised. Is it safe to eat and use paper? No, it's not safe to eat paper. While it's toxic, it's not a food item and not to be intended. Okay, yeah, I mean, that part I agreed with. But I would have thought that, while paper doesn't necessarily break down into like a nutritious value or something for humans, I would have thought it would at least disintegrate enough or break down into small enough parts that it would not get stuck into like a digestive tract. How about pizza instead? What is going on? What happens if you swallow paper? Alright, Quora, here's your time to shine. It's flavourless and totally illegal. Okay, that's a very weird way to describe it. I ate a few... This is such a random anecdote. I ate a few pages of a Reader's Digest on a dare from my older brother when I was 4. I threw it up later. Okay, fair enough. It's mostly fibre. Yeah, exactly. Like, paper is mostly fibre. Like, I mean, I wouldn't exactly recommend to anyone just go eat a load of fibre or something, but... It's the sort of thing where I'm like, a small amount of paper probably doesn't do that much, right? Also, this person says, I've eaten paper for about 20 years now and I'm fine. Okay, well, I mean, there's some very insane stories going on here on Quora. Okay, it does depend on the type of paper and how much you chew. Fair enough. But, it's actually got a word. Xylophagia. Paper eating. Huh. Pica's unusual craving. I do know about pica. That's a generic term for cravings or things which are not edible or not usually eaten as food or whatever. Can you survive eating only paper? That's not what I meant. I just want to know. You get like... I just want to know, basically, this kid chewing on, like... I'm going to say he was chewing on something the size of an A6 piece of paper. You know, is he at risk of like an internal blockage in his digestive system? Because my hunch is, I don't know. I don't want to be too hasty and say this stuff because, again, I'm not like a medical professional or have any really experience in the medical field. So it feels a little bit disingenuous for me to really say much about it. But it's the sort of thing where I'm just like, I'm kind of surprised by it. But anyway, the long story short of it is the fact that I don't know if my teacher should have gone that hard, I suppose, when describing, you know, the problems that occur from eating paper. I feel like probably you should just, the most obvious thing you should say about eating paper, chewing paper is like, it doesn't even taste good. Like, why would you do it? It doesn't taste good. It has no nutritional value. And there's much better things to chew if you wanted to chew something. Like, I feel like if I was a teacher, I'd much rather... Well, would I much rather? Hold on. Apologies, a little bit of a pause there. Anyway, I don't remember exactly what I was saying, but I remember I was going to say something along the lines of, if I was a teacher, I feel like I'd 100% prefer one of my students to be chewing gum rather than chewing paper. Because, you know, well, I don't think, you know, you'll... Well, I mean, okay, hold on. Like, I'm trying to think where I stand even on this. Because, you know, obviously while I was saying these things where I'm like, I think I was a very extreme story, I kind of do agree with my teacher at the same time. Where I'm just like, you obviously should not eat paper, like, in the slightest. Like, don't do that. It's pointless in many different regards, which is sort of like a whole next level of pointlessness, isn't it? But it's the sort of thing where I'm just like, yeah, don't eat paper, you know. If you really want to chew something, you should chew gum. But even then, it's like, I mean, but the thing with like the fact that chewing gum tends to be banned in schools is because a lot of students just tend to, like, when they're done with it, instead of like properly throwing it away or whatever, they just like stick it underneath a table or something, and it just makes kind of a mess. Because chewing gum hardens quite hard, I suppose, and is quite difficult to clean up in the first place, which makes quite the mess for, I suppose, janitors or cleaners to really, you know, get rid of it, which is, you know, completely fair. I don't think we should be making their jobs any harder than it needs to be, right? So, what's that? Plant a fruit tree. Plant a fruit tree and customize something. We can do that. Yeah, I don't know. Don't eat paper. I you know, despite the fact I was saying that I'm not really someone to eat paper, I do have actually an anecdote from when I was about 2 or something where I did eat some paper. Mainly because I was 2 and I don't really think I knew what I was doing, but it also sounds a bit more horrible when I think about it. But it was my sister drew like a really nice drawing, you know, like a kid's drawing. I don't remember what she drew, but she drew like something with sky or something, like something with a sky in the ground, and I remember eating like the sky of her drawing. Why? I don't exactly remember, but some part of me felt like it was because I saw it be done in like some show I watched or something, where it was just like, oh, you know, some other older sibling complaining about their younger sibling like eating their artwork or something. You know, I was a very, I suppose, impressionable child in that sense, with a strong sense of, hey, I should probably do this, you know, because this is what other people do or whatever. And it was just like, oh, you know, this person in whatever media property ate some paper. I was like, I'm going to do that as well. And I ate the sky. At least that's my recollection of it. Again, I was 2. So, you know, this was over 20 years ago. I don't really have much more recollection of it in the first place. So I don't really know if that's why I did it. I just have a memory of doing it. And I really have nothing else to, you know, defend myself with about that. I do remember, though, the aftermath of it. You know, obviously my dad was just like, why'd you eat drawing? And then what he ended up doing was he ended up cutting off like the bite marks of my drawing at the top, so it still left like about half a sky or something, half a blue sky, but just, you know, without the bite marks of a toddler on top. Was it nutritious? Was it delicious? Absolutely not, because I think that's the only time I ever did it. I'm pretty sure I probably did it and was like, this tastes terrible. I don't know why I did it, but you know. But the mind of a 2-year-old is not one of much logic and reason, as it is more defied by whims and wants of a moment, which, you know, is kind of to be expected, I suppose. It's just, you know, that's my memory of eating paper, and I would not recommend it. Saying that, you know, I'm surprised there isn't a candy based off eating paper. It sounds so dumb to say, but, you know, I wouldn't be surprised if there were sweets or candies just made out, they're just like, not literally made out of paper, but like based off paper. You know how we got like candy cigarettes, we got, I don't know what else off the top of my head, to be perfectly honest, like candy dummies, I suppose. I feel like paper seems like a pretty good one to get like a random household sweet object named after, you know. You can imagine it's like paper thin, it's like tissue paper, it's like soft to the touch, you put it on your tongue and it just melts in your mouth or something like that. But flavored paper is what I'm like proposing, but it's not flavored paper. It's literally just like a candy sheet but just like rolled out incredibly thin or something. I feel like that must be a thing, because I remember these Chinese sweets I had when I was younger, called like white rabbit sweets or something, which basically came wrapped in like this rice paper, which I was never particularly sure if you were meant to eat the paper or not, because I always thought you were not meant to eat the paper, because it came in like the wrapping and then it came wrapped in rice paper. So I was like, okay, undo wrapping, undo rice paper, eat the sweet. And basically the sweet is just like a really, really, really tough mawam is probably how I describe it. It's kind of like you're meant to suck on it, but it's also like you can chew it a bit as well. But yeah, like it came in this like rice paper thing. But then I remember one of my friends just one time was just like, oh, you know, here we go. You know, it was like her mother gave us all like these white rabbit sweets, and I just remember she like unwrapped it and just popped the whole thing in her mouth, and I was like, whoa, you can eat that paper? Because I felt like I always had conflicting reports whether I was meant to actually eat the paper or not. In retrospect, I think you probably could have eaten it. I think it's just rice paper. So, you know, I guess rice paper is what I'm thinking of, flavoured rice paper as a type of sweet. But I don't know, it just feels like it should be a more popular thing. It should be like a mainstream sweet which exists or something, you know, like a household name. Like, I was going to say fizz pops. I don't think that's even a thing. Pop rocks, that's what I meant to say. Or like lollipops or something. Where it's just like, oh, you know, you want to pick up some, I don't know, you wouldn't call it flavoured paper. I guess you'd call it like candy paper or something. Or sweet paper. Or maybe you call it like sweet wrappings, because, you know, maybe that's what it looks like. And it's just, I can just imagine it. Can't you imagine it? Just like thin slices of like wafer thin, you know, not even thinner than wafer thin, paper thin, tissue thin, so like sweet tissue paper. Just pop it in your mouth and it dissolves. I don't know if that's a thing. Let's see. Candy paper. Oh, you know, I mean, it does look like a thing. Edible paper money. What? Sorry, another pause. I don't remember what I was saying in conversation. Oh yeah, paper candy. Like edible paper. Turns out it is a thing. I mean, sweets for all events, buy candy edible paper. I mean, edible paper. So it is actually just a thing? I guess that makes sense. I mean, I would have thought it'd be more like a more commonplace candy item. It feels like something which would really take off, you know? But the kids, they yearn to eat the paper. It's not even remotely true, probably. Yeah, like this one's branded as funny money. It's edible money. That seems like perfect, right? Maybe not, I don't know. Anyway, white rabbit candy. Is this what I'm thinking of? Yeah, I think this is right. Cream candy, white rabbit. And we always came with this like rice paper thing. Paper. Each candy is wrapped in a thin, edible paper-like wrapping made from sticky rice. Well, there you go, past me. You know, all this time I could have eaten with sticky rice paper. And then I would have had my own shot, I suppose, at edible paper. I don't know what I'm going with this. Edible paper, I guess, is what I'm going to call this episode. Anyway, I'm going to round this episode off here before I lose my mind. So if you have been watching, thank you very much. It's been Animal Crossing New Horizons. I've been Dear Darling. Likes, comments, subscription, shares, greatly appreciated. Twitter, Discord down below. Hope we see each other again. But for now, it's our farewell. So until next time, bye-bye for now.